Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I'm your host, Jon Hubbard, director here at Boomer Consulting, and with me today is Amanda Wilkie. Hi, Amanda. Thank you for joining us.
Hey, Jon. Always happy to be here.
And Amanda is one of our process and technology consultants here at Boomer Consulting. So she is well suited for this topic, which is how a firm's processes and technology should integrate. So it's all about that process and technology alignment. So Amanda, first question for you is, why is it important for firms to think about the integration of process and technology?
Well, Jon, they really go hand in hand today. I mean, I spent, about 13 years inside of firms working in technology before joining Boomer. And, we looking at new technology, you were always looking at the process around it when you implemented it. And if you don't get those two things right, if they aren't working well together, you're not going to get what you expected. You're not going to get the return on the investment. You're not going to get the improvement in the process. And that became very clear, or I should say the highlight of that became very clear when I joined Boomer a few years ago. And we found ourselves talking to people. We thought that we were going into a technology conversation, and what they were really talking about was, their process, or they were talking about process, but what they really needed to help them was a new technology, or to leverage the technology that they had even better. And that's when we being Boomer, really started highlighting what we called the intersection of technology and process, and how it was very important. And as the years have gone by, we've realized that we're not really talking about those two things intersecting. They truly have to integrate. And I'll give you an analogy. If you think about your process being your train tracks, if you have train tracks going in all different directions, coming together and crossing over each other, it's going to be difficult to get your train down those tracks. It's going to be difficult to get them down there at all, but let alone efficiently. And if you're using outdated technology, or you're using technology that doesn't fit your firm or your process anymore, you're really using like an old steam engine. So even if your process is streamlined and you only have one set of tracks to follow, with old outdated technology, you're not going to be moving very quickly. So you're not going to be efficient, and you're not going to be very fast. But if you can integrate those two things, if you can take your processes and streamline them and make them as consistent as possible, and then you add new technology, or any technology, you're going to get the speed with that efficiency. So when we say that you really need to integrate your processes and your technology, that's what we mean. They really need to be in line together, and you need to look at them together as well.
That's really helpful, Amanda. And that's my first time actually hearing that example and the delineation between integration versus intersection. And I think that's a really valuable example you just gave there. So let's talk about some potential ways, some potential solutions firms should be thinking about to better integrate their technology and processes. What recommendations do you have for our listeners?
Yeah. Well, if we're talking about the technology side of it, a lot of firms, if they haven't already, they're looking at tools for workflow, so that you can really manage and have transparency into where the work is in the process and in the firm. Again, sticking with technology, a lot of firms are looking at, how do we automate these things? How do we use process automation, robotic process automation, to, again, kind of streamline and take us from that steam engine to that, that super train, the bullet train, if you will. Well, again, you've got to really look at your process before you can look at any of those new technologies. Our colleague Ariana and I, every time we have this conversation, she loves to give me the opportunity. She always tees me up for this analogy. But if you're not looking at your process, you can still automate an inefficient process, but what you really do is you build a dumb bot. And we don't have time for dumb bots in our environment. So my recommendation for anyone who's looking at any technology, any type of technology in the firm, make sure you take the time to look at the processes that are using that technology and make sure that you're building those to be streamlined and efficient. So you're getting your train tracks in order, if you will. Before and while you're implementing the technology. And then vice versa, if you are looking at your process, don't rule out technology. Find ways that either the technology you have or technology that's out there and is available can turn, those new streamlined, efficient processes, into really a hyper speed train by making sure that you've got your bullet train in there and not your steam engine. Did
Nice.
that make sense, John? I feel like I talked around in circles a little bit, but were you able to keep up with all of
No,
that,
that was
trains and
great.
tracks?
No, that was really great. Thank you. So we have why it's important. We have
Mhm.
some potential recommendations you just outlined, some suggestions for how people should be thinking about this. Speak to us about a little bit once firms do this, based off your experience working with a whole lot of firms over the years. Talk to us about some of the results, some of the positive results you've seen firms have by integrating their process and technology.
Yeah, well, one thing that a lot of firms are looking for when they look at this integration between technology and process is they feel like they want to be using their technology as effectively as possible, that they want the return on the investment for that technology. But really, if you are integrating your processes and your technology together, what you're going to do is not just build efficiency. Again, everyone wants efficiency. You're not just going to get the ROI from the technology. You're truly going to build capacity. You are going to eliminate the waste of everyone running around and trying to, communicate where work is and what's going on. You can eliminate that and truly build capacity so that your staff can focus on the things that are most important to their clients, the things that the clients value most, and then therefore, the things that the firm is actually going to enjoy delivering to their client much more. I mean, that's what we really want to do. We want to spend our time adding value to our clients. So that's really what you're going to get is that capacity. I'd also say that you get a lot of insight. As you start looking at your processes and looking at it, with technology in mind, you're going to start identifying areas that you can, possibly eliminate waste. But more importantly, what are some things that we can actually automate? What are some tedious things? What are some things that are kind of mundane that fluctuate throughout the seasons? And identifying those things and being able to automate them, that's going to again build even more capacity for your staff to focus on more value add services to their clients.
And Amanda, I know one thing you do really well and spend a lot of time in is paying attention to what's going on outside the profession, right? So I know you're part of several groups that are not just accounting focused. So as you think about this topic and how it applies to outside the accounting profession, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah. Well, I think every profession, every industry right now is really looking for how they can build capacity. Things are crazy right now. We're trying to figure out how do we do things not with fewer people, but with the same people. How do we do things in this new world that is completely remote? And that's going to include, technology. So you need technology and process both. And, many firms, once they really button up their processes, once they have people that have been trained and understand process improvement, that's even something more that they can offer to their clients, because they know the industry, so they know the best practices. They get to know the technology. Once they have the process improvement, again, they're able to add that value to their clients as well. So I think we're seeing the same thing in other professions and other industries, but there's a lot of opportunity for CPAs to really help their clients in that area as well.
Right. Nope, that's great. So if we have a listener here who's thinking, all right, I got the why, I got the how through some of your solutions. You also shared with us what success looks like in terms of some of the benefits here. What's your recommendation for a next step? If someone's saying, all right, I like what Amanda's saying here, and I want to take action, what are your recommended actions to help our listeners get started?
Yeah. Well, I think one of the things you really have to do is identify where you think you're going to get the most value. Many times, again, when we look internally at process improvement, many firms are looking at their compliance processes, so their tax or their audit, things like that. Again, you can build a lot of efficiency and gain capacity in those areas. But there's tons of other processes, whether it's, your Jon, thinking of you, your business development process, your invoicing and billing and AR processes, your onboarding of clients, your onboarding of staff. There's so many processes throughout the organization that can really benefit from, process improvement. So I would say, taking a look at what some of those processes are, finding the people that are passionate about some of the process improvement, and then prioritizing which processes you really want to tackle first. So I know you asked where to get started, and I gave you a list of like 4 or 5 things to do, but that would be my recommendation, Jon.
No, that's really good. And I have a book behind me over here titled Who Not How. And part of your answer there was finding
Yeah.
the right who. If you find the right individual in your organization that can help move this forward, that has a passion for the integration of process and tech, they can help figure out the how. So I think that's
Yeah.
good advice, Amanda.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just recently read that book as well, Jon. It's a great book, and I highly recommend it. But yes, I'd like that you highlighted that and you picked up on that. You have to have someone that's passionate about this. You have to find that who. If not, then process improvement and new technology or changing technology, that's a lot of change. And we have so much change in 2020. The last thing we want to do is shove more change down someone's throat that isn't ready for it, isn't bought into it. And so to really make this successful, to make any process or technology, let alone a process and technology initiative successful, you're going to have to find that who, that person who's really going to be passionate about it.
I like it. So, Amanda, tell us where our listeners can find you on social media. I know you are active on there, so where can they find you?
Yeah, best place to find me is going to be Twitter at Amanda Wilkie BCI, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. And also, you can always just send me an email at amanda.wilkie@boomer.com. Always happy to hear from our listeners.
Awesome. So, yeah, if you are listening and do want to connect with Amanda, feel free to send her an email. Or I know she is always sharing great information on her social media channel. So, again, Amanda, always a pleasure to speak with you. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Jon.
And for those listeners, and this is just a reminder, we release new episodes every Tuesday. So please stay tuned for the next episode. Thanks so much.